If you're pregnant and you're considering a cesarean section but don't really understand the risks associated with it, you want to watch this video. I'm going to be breaking down the risks and the benefits of a cesarean section versus a planned delivery using guidance from the Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynaecology. I recently made a video on the fact that the cesarean section rates have gone up. So it's 45% in 23 to 24 versus 26% about 10 years earlier. So that's a significant jump. And obviously the reason why that's gone up would be multiple factors. One of the things I've been seeing in clinic is that women who are worried and scared about the potential of going into labour and losing control, not being heard, having trauma, are requesting a cesarean section more in the antenatal period. I think it's really important that you understand the numbers and the risks associated with it. So I'll take you through those now. So a lot of these numbers, I think it's good to compare to if you were having a vaginal delivery, and that's what I'll be using it to do in comparison. I think by the time I get to the end, I think you will understand which one is technically safer for you and which one is technically safer for baby. But it's just really important that you are able to make an informed decision. So the first thing is about having a tear in the perineum. So that's like the back passage. So the vagina where the baby would come out from versus the bottom where your stools and your flatus would come from. The area in between is called the perineum. And so having a tear in labour is not unheard of, but it can be quite severe and extend to the muscles that surround the back passage. So those tears we call 3rd and 4th degree tears, and that could lead to women having incontinence of their stools, incontinence of wind, and it can be quite debilitating. So if you were having a planned cesarean section, the risk or the numbers of risk of that happening has been quoted as, in 100,000 cesarean sections, 0 will have had a perineal injury. However, in women who are having a vaginal delivery, that number has been quoted. Before I carry on with the video, why don't you subscribe to this channel? On this channel, I'm helping pregnant and postpartum women find clarity when the system fails them by answering your burning questions. So if you're interested in this, subscribe to this channel. That number has been quoted as 1 in 179 women. So in 179 vaginal births, one of those births will have a severe injury to the back passage. The next thing is incontinence. So incontinence of urine, but also incontinence of fecal matter as well. So what they're specifically looking at is the rate of incontinence 1 year after having a baby. So if someone were to have an injury to the back passage and develop fecal incontinence, 80% or so of those people will be asymptomatic at year 1. And that's obviously still a really long time to have symptoms, but that's the sort of cutoff they're using. So for urine incontinence, what the numbers are suggesting, about 1 in 5 to 14, so the range is 5 to 14, women will still have urine incontinence after a cesarean section, versus about 1 in 5 for women who've had a vaginal delivery. And then for fecal incontinence, it's about 1 in 13 for people who've had a cesarean section versus 1 in 13, and that's no real different to people who've had a vaginal delivery with no assistance, with no instrument. And I think you might be thinking, well, if you've not had a tear to the back passage, how are you incontinent? You're incontinent because the weight of the pregnancy on the pelvic floor has been intense for about 9 months, or obviously increasing over the last 3 months of pregnancy. And that's what causes the weakness in those muscles and therefore the symptoms to occur. So I do have a video on the pelvic floor and the injuries that can occur to it after delivery, and I'll link that up here somewhere. So when I'm consenting someone for a cesarean section, I mention the injury to the other organs. So you've got your bladder in the front, you've got the bowel that sits at the back of the uterus, and then you've got tubes that carry water from the kidneys that are kind of like in and around the uterus and can sometimes be injured if there are complications at the time of delivery. So the rate that it's been quoted in this consent form advice is that the rate of injury is 1 in 1,000. So in 1,000 cesarean sections, one of those will have an injury to the urinary tract, so the bladder or the ureters. And there's no data available for whether or not that's seen in a vaginal delivery, but I guess the expectation is that that number would be lower. And then wound infection, I think this is quite important. So lots of people will come back in with an infection on their cesarean section wound or an episiotomy wound or a perineal injury wound. So in a cesarean section, the rate of infection that requires you to be readmitted into hospital is about 1 in 14 to about 1 in 50. So that's the range. Whereas if you're having a vaginal delivery, it's about 1 in 100 to about 13 in 100. So the rate of infection is higher in people who have cesarean sections in terms of like having to come back to hospital. In terms of how long you stay in hospital, if you have a vaginal delivery, on average, you'll be in hospital for about 2 days. Whereas if you had a cesarean section, you could be in hospital for about 4 days on average. And something that we need to speak about quite seriously, and I alluded to my commentary around cesarean sections, is that when you are having a cut on the uterus, it is not without risk to the future pregnancies and to your future health. So in the next pregnancy, there is a risk of uterine rupture. And this is most commonly seen in labour. Sometimes we've seen it before labour, so before any contractions start, just as the uterus itself is expanding and that previous scar has opened up. The rate at which that happens has been quoted as 1 in 500. And I find that really interesting because throughout my career, I've always quoted it as the risk of the uterus rupturing is 1 in 200. And it definitely feels like I see it more in practice than 1 in 500. But those are the numbers that have been given for us. And then they obviously say that the more cesarean sections you've had, the more that number itself goes up. And for someone who's having a vaginal delivery, the number is about 1 in 14,000 pregnancies will a uterine rupture occur. And I think with that, when people have had a cesarean section before, the likelihood of them being successful having a vaginal delivery in that next pregnancy is quoted at about 70%. But that often depends on whether or not they laboured before or if they got stuck in labour before. So if they had got stuck in labour before, that probably is down to like 60, sometimes 54%. But if they got to say fully dilated and needed a cesarean section because the baby themselves was stuck, then that might then go up to about 84%. Again, that's something that you can discuss with your midwife or your doctor when trying to decipher what the rate of having a successful vaginal delivery is for you. But by doing so, just note that risk of uterine rupture is there. And if we ever use medication, so the oxytocin, to help augment the labour or bring on the labour, then that risk doubled. So it would go from, say, 1 in 500 to about 1 in 250. So that's also worth noting. So every time I consent for a cesarean section, I mention the risk of having an emergency hysterectomy. So that's where we have to remove the womb in order to save the life. But the rates at which that's quoted is about 1 in 500 again, which interestingly, that being the same number as uterine rupture, I've seen way more ruptures than I've seen ever really a hysterectomy. And if you were having vaginal deliveries, the rate of needing a hysterectomy at a vaginal delivery is about 1 in 1,000. And so the more cesarean sections you have, the weaker the front of the womb becomes, and it increases the risk of the placenta at the next pregnancy implanting in the wrong place. So what that means is that it can implant over where that previous scar was, sometimes go through the uterus into the muscles or into the organs that surround it, and they call it placenta accreta, which is where you've got an abnormally adherent or abnormally stuck placenta, and it's often, when detected, best to deliver in certain centres where they can manage it properly. And it is, and potentially is, a very dangerous surgery at the time. So the risk of having that is about 1 in 1,000 if you have a cesarean section for your future pregnancies, and the more cesarean sections you have, the riskier that is. And for vaginal delivery, they quote that as about 1 in 2,900. And then pain scores are lower. So pain scores at birth are lower for a cesarean section and higher on day 3, whereas for people who have vaginal deliveries will be higher at birth and then lower on day 3, which is go figure. Other things about, we're always saying to women that, like, when I open in the uterus, there's a small risk of having a cut to the skin of the baby. So that risk is about 1 to 2 in 100. Whereas for women who are going through vaginal deliveries, if it's an unassisted vaginal birth, so we're not using any instruments, the risk of having a cut to the skin is minimal, like non-existent, because how would that happen? And then things to note about the baby that they have evidence for. So asthma, so the slightly higher risk of asthma for babies born by cesarean section, about 1 in 55 versus 1 in 67. And then in terms of mortality to babies, it's 1 in 1,700 versus 1 in 3,300 for a vaginal delivery. And I think that's interesting because I had always gotten the impression having a cesarean section is safer for the baby at the time. But then, yes, their lungs don't get squeezed, so then they're probably slightly higher risk of having respiratory conditions later on. And what they've quoted here is about the higher risk of sort of neonatal mortality, so death of the baby within the first 28 days is higher for women who've had cesarean sections. But also thinking about the mother, the risk of infection, having to go back to hospital, being in hospital for a bit longer, you would see with a cesarean section, but actually the risk of having an injury to the back passage is also quite high. So I think consequently there is no easy way out. Both are hard. both come with complications. And it's just about determining what risks you are happier taking and how much control I think you want of the situation. And I think because we live in a modern society where we have information and we have relatively safe cesarean sections, it definitely does lead us to have that choice. So in the past, I've spoken to colleagues who might have gone on electives to other countries, other parts of the world where they might not have as good pain relief as we do. So when they're having cesarean sections, it's a bit more painful for the woman and less nice and has more complications associated with it. So they're probably less likely to reach for it. Whereas in our society, I don't think that that's the case. So hopefully this has given you some much needed information about whether or not you would pick a cesarean section, and given you the information and the language that you need to advocate for yourself if you were to go to an appointment and discuss it with your clinician. So if you've enjoyed it, I invite you to subscribe to this channel where I am talking about anything pregnancy and postpartum related and looking at it within the systems that determine our outcomes. Until next time.